Moral debates. This is the fun part of the conversation. There's 3 initiatives. Prop 2, which talks about farm animals and how much room they have. Prop 4, which is notification of parents related to minor abortion, abortions performed on minors. And Prop 8, which is the gay marriage debate. This one is kind of interesting. I actually like talking about farm animals in the midst of a political season. It's kind of fun. It only relates to these 3 creatures. Egg-laying hens, calves raised for purposes of veal, and pregnant sows, pregnant pigs. These are the only 3 farm animals covered by this initiative at this point, unless a judge broadens that. But this is what the initiative says. And it says by 2015, each of these animals will have room in their cage to lie down, stand up, fully extend their limbs, and turn around. And turn around is actually the one that takes the most space. Chickens have to be able to spread their wings. That's the requirement. Now, for this to be said, obviously, many of these animals do not have these luxuries at this point in time. The debate focuses on the moral imperative that these are, in fact, inhumane conditions for any animal. There are the stories, for example, of veal calves that are actually stood up in cages that are just big enough for them to stand up. Why don't they want them walking around? Because that toughens the muscle. From a practical perspective, in terms of chicken farms, for example, this would affect about 1 week of the chicken's life. Most chickens raised for food, I think, are in for about 2 months. Are raised for about 2 months, and then they're sent off to slaughter. This doesn't affect food chickens, though. It's only the egg layers. And so food chickens don't count in this. But even if you look at that area, it only affects a narrow part. Calves for veal are slaughtered very young. They actually have to be kept indoors for a significant part of their life to keep them free from disease and other kinds of exposure that you get when you get out into the farmyard. In the case of chickens, the egg layers, one of the reasons why they're kept indoors is because of avian flus. There's been a lot of outbreaks of avian flus. You see some states destroying tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of chickens. And so one of the questions that you have is, you either have to make bigger cages, or you have to let these things roam outside. Free-range egg-laying chickens, if you will. So there's a debate over, do the marginal changes in the quote-unquote inhumanity of the animal raising process justify the marginal cost? Estimates are it will cost between 1 and 2 cents an egg to comply with this. Would all of us be willing to pay another 12 cents for a dozen of eggs? Maybe, but it's a 3 or 4% increase. I mean, it's a significant number. There's a concern, the goal is to eliminate factory farms and also to provide some environmental relief and to create healthier animals. This area is part of the debate because exposure to other animals, in fact, increases the chances that if one animal in a herd gets a disease, the rest do. The arguments against drive the costs up. Again, you have that 12 cents a dozen. Make California farms less competitive to the extent that we're competing with other states for the provision of chicken and veal and pork. Obviously, that's an issue. It'll drive up imports from Mexico and other places because we're producing less domestically in the state, which of course has different health standards. And then, of course, there's the debate over disease. Does it help? Does it hurt? We don't know. Probably making the cages bigger won't have a huge impact. To the extent this forces farmers to actually let their animals go outside, it could have a health impact. Any questions? All right, we'll get to the heavy stuff now. Parental notification of minors receiving abortions. In 1953, the state passed a law that allowed minors to obtain an abortion without parental consent. This is the only medical procedure at this point in time that has legal protection to where a minor can seek medical care and not notify their parents. Now note, that's 20 years before Roe v. Wade. Okay, this has been around for a long time. So at this point, this piece of legislation, and I think this is its 4th or 5th appearance on the ballot. Let's see, in November 05 and November 06, it lost about 53 to 47 in both instances. Basically what it does is it says if a minor wants to receive an abortion, the doctor has to notify the parent, or if the doctor suspects that the parent is abusive, an adult in the family, that the child is about to have an abortion. The minor can go to the courts and go to family court and actually get a judge to allow them to have it if they don't want to talk to their parents. So that's the first thing it does. That's the big thing. Obviously, the right to privacy versus, basically where's the starting point of life, the whole abortion debate, all gets wrapped up in this one conversation. But this one takes it a step further and balances off parental rights against that right to privacy. And it says that for every other medical procedure, parents have to be notified, you have to have parental permission, except in emergency circumstances. This also has the exceptions for emergency circumstances built into it. The second part of this, and sort of minor, is it creates a database so that we know how many abortions are performed on minors. It doesn't identify the individual, but it requires their age and when and where the abortion was performed be compiled and published in a public report. And the third thing is that it prevents minors from being coerced into having an abortion. In other words, you'll have instances where parents might coerce their child into getting an abortion if they get pregnant. And it actually states by law that the minor has to consent to the abortion. Abortion obviously is a heavily charged moral issue that our society is still debating. But this one, because it focuses on the parental aspect of it, actually generalizes it more. The arguments for it, abortion is obviously a serious medical procedure. It has both physical and emotional consequences. The parent or court have to do it for all other things. There are instances of dangerous outcomes, children dying because, women, young minors dying because of abortion outcomes. And there's also a need to report abuse. One of the provisions of this says that if a physician believes there's abuse associated with it, like cases of rape or incest, and it doesn't report them, that there are sanctions against the doctor. In the current system, technically that's supposed to happen, but this new reporting framework is designed to make sure that if they used one of the exclusions related to abuse, that it was reported. The no arguments, obviously, the harder you make abortion, the more fears there are that children will pursue dangerous alternatives, whether it be back alley abortions, going out of state. There's a concern that minors might, in fact, have more suicides because of the emotional stress of having to deal with this in the context of their parents. It doesn't offer protection to teens that are in dangerous homes once the parents find out what's going to happen. There's a concern that kids won't be able to, will be afraid to go to judges, and so may have to turn to less attractive alternatives. And it also, because of the sanctions in terms of reporting abuse, it would open doctors to more civil litigation.
By minor, do you mean anybody under 18, or is there like...
That's not emancipated. Okay. So in other words, in California, once you become a quote-unquote emancipated minor, the court says you're free to make adult decisions, then you're free to, there's no provision.
Is there like a minimum wage for abortions, like in minors? Like, does the doctor require there to be...
Under existing law, a minor can go to any adult or can go on their own to an abortion clinic and receive an abortion without any sort of sign-off by any adult.
And one more question. Do you have any statistics over exactly how much like, the suicide rate would potentially increase?
No.
Or...
Well, we don't even know how many of these are performed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it would be hard to come up with an estimate because we don't know how pervasive it is. And that's part of the goal, is to, it's on the prior slide, to talk about creating a reporting requirement. So we at least have statistics on it. But yeah, we don't have a sense of what the suicide rate would be or anything like that.